Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the building commission meeting, a special meeting on January 6th. Jim is not here today, so I will be substituting as chair. We have just Jim is absent. Everybody else looks like they're here. And let's see. We've got the approval of the meeting minutes for our November 25th, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any questions?
A motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Meeting minutes? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Is Joe going to be here today or no? Okay. Okay. All right. We have tonight our presentation from CSG on the school feasibility RFQs. I know you all had gotten the big email that Joe had sent out. Some of us maybe had a problem reading it, some didn't. And Samantha's here to do just a presentation and everything. The packet that we received, the front page has been replaced for today's date. So just kind of ignore the front page. There really is no change other than the notation on recommendation. We're gonna pass on that right now and just look at what we've got here. So do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. My name is Sam D'Agostino. I'm a project manager with Construction Solutions Group. So we are an owner's rep firm. I don't know if you guys are familiar with us, but we kind of facilitated the architectural RFQP process for East Windsor. So what we did was we went through all the responses. So in total, we've got 7 responses from various architecture firms throughout the state. We had them break down the costs in a few different phases. So the first phase would be conceptual planning services. The second would be professional cost estimating. And the third would be grant application assistance. The idea with bringing an architect on board is to have them help us come up with conceptual designs for the Broadbrook Elementary School and then a combined East Windsor Middle School, East Windsor High School. So once an architect is brought on board, they're going to be able to utilize the ed specs that are being drafted as of right now and determine pedagogies and ways that the building can be laid out. So that way we can come up with a cost estimate and determine what the cost could potentially be for these projects. I went through and scored all of them. I believe that's on the 3rd page of the document that you have. So you can see all the scores based on my review of them. I called some of the references to learn a little bit more about some of the firms because I haven't worked with all of them directly. So basically all that to say, the firm with the lowest fee but the highest score is DWWO. They're out of Woodford and they're working in collaboration with Northeast Collaborative Architects. However, it is ultimately the building committee's decision as to who you would like to select. I know that was a brief run through, but does anyone have any questions?
Are the scores based on like the higher the better or the lower the better?
Higher the better.
Higher the better.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Let's see who the highest score.
Yeah.
Antonozzi.
Antonazzi, yeah. Do you have any can you comment on the reason why they would be like some of the benefits of them at 25, like more important things? Because I mean, the numbers here, I mean, I can see like obviously which one's higher, but is there something over here that you would feel is a better way to think about?
I truly think in terms of Antonazzi specifically, I've only just started working with them on another project.
Okay.
But I know just in general, CSG has done a lot of projects with Antonazzi. I would say that one of their stronger suits is their their conceptual design and their understanding of the state process. Obviously, we're not at the point where we're gonna be needing to, go to like state review meetings and stuff like that. But just their understanding in terms of of what's eligible versus ineligible in terms of reimbursement, I think is super beneficial. So, yeah, that's what I would say on Antonazi.
Okay. Jeff, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I just, when you said lowest price but highest score, I thought you said GWWO for the highest score.
So if you look at Antonazi's fee, their fee is higher than GWWO. So my memo said that GWWO was the highest, the firm that had the lowest fee but the highest score. Does that make sense?
It's kind of like the medium.
Yes.
Do you ever, I don't know how else to, am I,
So if we're gonna look at savings wise and we're gonna look at a higher score, GWWO has a lower fee and their score is still high.
Mhm.
Not as high as Antonazi, but they're within, the ranking.
yeah, so kind of to reiterate what she said, if you look at all of their scores, Antonazi is obviously the highest. But then like KBA, for example, is the next highest, but their fee is significantly higher than Antonazi and GWWO. So that's why I said that GWWO has the highest score with the lowest fee. It is up to the commission who you would like to select. These are just the results of what our review was.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
You got this tech on with
Oh.
asterisk for possibly a big savings off of that quote. Now, was this reflected in the scoring of the numbers, or this would be less if we don't have to do it, if you look at your addendums down below?
Yeah, that.
Wondered
so
why.
If you were to go with Tecton based on their fee clarifications, those savings would apply depending on, I haven't read this, but, their savings would apply depending on what the district decided to do. But it only applies to Tecton, it doesn't apply to any other firm.
Yeah, but that would make the numbers substantially different.
Yeah, but that's just.
You'd have to
If you
know,
were to select them though, I just went based on the fee that they submitted.
Mhm.
Like this was their official fee
Mhm.
or their official cost they submitted to us.
Seems like GWWO had their higher numbers in the good places to design, understanding.
They went up and,
they've been involved in some big stuff.
have you done a lot of work with GWWO?
So I know,
Right? See that?
I know they're new, they're in West Hartford. They are newer to Connecticut.
Out of Florida.
To be honest with that.
Yep.
Northeast Collaborative is not as new. They are familiar with the Connecticut school construction. So I think the two of them, would be a good team. I've not personally worked with either of them, so I can't speak to that experience, but their references were really good. Called a reference for both Northeast and GWWO, and their references were very good.
So can you explain why Northeast Collaborative wouldn't have put the bid in on their own without GWWO?
I don't know, architects go through, some of them call it like go, no goes.
Mhm.
So, some of them will look at an RFP and decide that maybe they just don't have the capacity to take it on fully.
Mhm.
In terms of like a full design
Mhm.
and that type of thing. So it really depends. I don't have a definitive answer as to
Yeah.
why they would choose to go
Yep.
conjunction with someone.
Yeah.
Worked in a couple of school districts before, out of Connecticut. And we were always required to go with the low bid unless we could say, hey, the low bid's just the low bid. Here's what we need to go to. Do we have any of those kind of requirements here? Anybody know?
I
So
don't know what
you
the
guys
documents
can-
said.
you have to give a rationale essentially as to who you picked, if it's not necessarily like the low bid.
Mhm.
So as long as you guys, once I figured out who you guys were picking, we'll write a memo basically saying that this is who you guys picked.
We got no people.
And that will go in with the project documentation. So when it goes to audit time and someone has a question,
Yeah.
it'll.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, they did South Windsor, one of their Gold Coast house buildings.
What's that?
I mean, we're just GWO. They did do South Philip Smith School down there in South Windsor.
They did the school in
They
South
did the
Windsor.
school in South Windsor.
Oh, okay.
I hope somebody called South Windsor to check and
I believe I did call South Windsor. I haven't back-
the job looked to went fairly well.
South Windsor, I mean, I've heard a lot about South Windsor through many clients. I don't have a direct experience with South Windsor. I believe I want to say I did call that reference, but I never received a call back. I just have to, I have to double check my notes.
That Anchor isn't there.
There was a few references that I called and left a message and I didn't receive a call back.
I didn't see South Windsor when I was looking at it, because I made a note that said projects for study are all out of state and not current
Yeah, I was gonna
WWO.
say.
I think South Windsor was a different one, but I do recall seeing South Windsor in the batch though. Actually, Tecton has the Ellington, they did the Ellington ed specs.
Yeah,
Let's see if I made a note on South.
they
Windsor.
do that, then, right? The Crystal
Uh,
School.
Tecton's got that they did the ed specs, but I don't know if they did the actual drawings.
For what school?
The Windermere School,
That's in progress.
yeah.
That's.
They did the Crystal Lake School,
Yeah.
didn't they?
I mean, because they could do the ed specs, but not.
Beautiful.
drawings.
How about that?
And do you have any opinion on any of this based on anything that you've read through there?
No, if I were, I haven't read any of
That's fine.
the references, however. Looking at the kind of the logic Jim was talking about.
Mhm.
GWWO has the very close, I mean, you gotta, obviously Castle Booze, I'm not sure what they were thinking.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not very hungry.
Mhm.
So we'll just discount that. Because they, so when you discount that, GWWO had the next highest score to Antonozzi,
Mhm.
and their price is substantially lower, I mean, $80,000+.
Yeah.
You know, that's, in our town, that's a big difference. So sometimes the lowest bidder, and I don't honestly don't know anything about
Yeah.
it. But
I agree that this score matrix is pretty interesting.
Yes, it is.
I think my only other concern with the GWWO was that the jobs that they did present, their change orders were high. I know not everything is based on change orders, but I think it can reflect things. That would be my only concern is always going with the low isn't always the
That's a
best.
good thing.
Yeah, we'll get you on the change orders, but
School district I was referencing to, we went with the low bidder, that's what everyone's afraid of. That we're gonna get nailed with change. See some of the bids, I mean, you got 105, you got 115,
Mhm.
not too far apart from each other, except two, really. One, but you pay the AI, yeah,
Well, I think
they're thinking that.
they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like Glenn said,
I think it was like a mechanical or something that was in there that they put in who they use for mechanical
Oh,
or
okay.
surveying, and I think that was one of the schools that was
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Keep track.
Yeah.
Does anybody
Yeah.
else have any questions? You guys want a little bit more time to go through it?
How did we come up with the point system?
I don't know.
So this is something
matrix
that,
thing, I don't.
This is something that we typically use, so
They gave point.
we rate
Gave
typically
points based upon their
zero being the lowest.
reactions, questions, and how they
And we just pick different categories that are pertinent to that.
gave them a rating.
So this RFQ, for example, it was the consensus.
Okay.
design, Cost estimating, because we know that cost is a huge factor. There, and grant applications, because if we end up deciding to go with these projects.
Races in everything.
Those requirements is really important.
Mhm.
And then typical people be like project understanding, project team, noting that the project team has experience in public school construction. So that's what the scoring matrix is based on. We usually use that our most critical points for depending on the district or the town.
How do we kind of determine, or how do you determine that
Um,
individual company?
sorry,
How do you figure that out, like between each individual company?
you mean like how do I pick the scores for each company?
Yeah, like you're just naming what you're going through to come up with a score system.
So what I do is I read through the RFPs, I go one by one and I look at what their responses are. And the responses, then I rate, okay, this firm seems like they have, more than how, I think it was, like example, like, some of these firms have 1 to 5 projects of its 1 to 5 projects, completing that were OGA funded. So that's easy. I can mark a 3. Or like if they've demonstrated an understanding of like the grant application requirements, some of them did okay, some of them had a higher explanation. So that would mean a higher score, that type of thing.
Thank you.
So basically all your opinions based upon your knowledge, your requirements.
And yeah, so I read through the RFPs, regardless of whether or not we've worked with them in the past, I look at all the RFPs.
Gotcha.
Like with
Yep.
fresh, would they be applicable or a good fit for the project and the town, knowing, Lenny and Joe and you guys and what's important for you and the town and budget and all that stuff.
So that's all. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When it comes to the first section for the conceptual planning services, when we're talking about the renovate to new or the new construction for the middle school, high school,
Mhm.
GWWO has the exact same price, whereas Antonazi, well, all the rest of them here, except for Slam, has different prices. Can you give just, I guess, your own personal opinion as to why you think that it would be the same with some people or with some companies and different with others?
I think it all depends honestly on how they interpret it.
Yep.
Even though the RFP is the same throughout, everyone's like, okay, well, a renovate, what was it? A renovate to a new construction might cost a little bit less because you're just working with a new building.
Yep.
You're working with a piece of land and you're starting from the ground up, whereas you renovate to new involves a little bit more coordination because you have to work with older systems, looking at if maybe there's hazardous materials, things like that. So there's a little bit more involved with the renovate to new. I think maybe, I don't want to speak for GWWO. It could be that maybe they weren't sure of the scope of like a renovate to new, not that they weren't sure, but they just felt that maybe they would be equal.
Yep. If we were to go with them at low and their price is the same, is there any way that they would be able to come back and go, no, you know what, it really is a little bit more, or are they stuck to this price and there's not anything that's gonna change that?
So once they sign the contract, they're stuck to the price unless for whatever reason the building commission decides to give them an addendum to the. So once their contract is signed, that is their price and that's what they have to stick to. If for some reason they feel that it's gonna cost more, then they bring it to us, we review it, we bring it to you guys and then profit determine if it's valid or not.
I'm familiar with it more on the end when you're actually doing the construction piece,
Mhm.
when you're doing the administrative, the drawing and all the upfront stuff. I don't have enough experience with that to know
Yep.
how that change order would even be accepted. So,
And the way that we wrote the RFP, because I know this was something that we kind of talked about too, that if the architect was selected and they went through all this process, we did the concept design, we did the estimate, we did the grant application. Is there a route in which they could stay on the project and continue? And it was hard to write the RFP that way because we aren't really sure what we're doing yet
Yeah.
in terms of like the renovate to new versus new construction.
Mhm.
So it's hard to get a cost for that when you're not really sure
Yeah,
what the project is going to be.
Right.
So this would specifically be to kind of get you to a grant application, concept design situation, and then, you know, if they wanted to resubmit for the architecture services thereafter, that's up to them, but we did talk about that. It's just tricky sometimes when you're not really sure.
yeah, it would be kind of hard. I mean,
They're done.
having one firm do all the drawings for like the upfront stuff and then having someone else recreate the wheels because they don't necessarily want to share their drawings.
Exactly, exactly. But unfortunately, it is what it is. It's hard. We did talk about it though,
Yep.
and we,
Can't do it.
but it makes it difficult.
Yeah,
As good as right as it can be. Oh,
you guys got going on down there?
Does anyone have any other questions for me?
looks like you did your homework. It was just one of these in here that had jobs come in with no cost overruns and no extras. That's my kind of person. I don't know where they priced. I couldn't find it. I was just looking. Well, they come in there, but in the long run, the cheapest price may be the most expensive.
That's right. You don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, it all depends on what your comfort level is. If you feel that the lowest possible is the one you guys want to go with, that's totally fine and we'll work with it. But like you said, it may.
Look at, we, prize example, right down on Abbey Road right now. Change order, change order, change order, change order.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
That's not a good design.
Len, do you know what we have for budget for this? Like this, I mean, we're gonna pay for this based on what we have in CNR, right?
To be honest with you, I haven't had a lot to do. with it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay,
I'm here because I have to be here, but aside from that,
okay.
I,
But the understanding though is that we have money in CNR to take care of this piece.
yes,
correct?
that's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna assume you don't know. Yeah. I do. Sorry, okay. I'm sitting here as chair tonight, so I really can't give you guys an opinion.
This one you were talking about that came under budget and
You're trying to,
Couldn't find, he was wondering which one didn't have the overages.
I can't find it.
Yeah, you can
Thank
find
you. I read all these, believe it or not. I read all these.
Good, I'm glad.
do you have any issues with VWW?
I don't know if it was or not. I had them in all order and I got two great granddaughters that cleaned up my office. Everything was out of order and I didn't mark in the books when I showed them.
What was your question?
Really,
There was one company that didn't have any overages, any extras, so he was
they were,
curious of which company that was.
yeah.
I don't like seeing change orders.
So.
Yeah, we,
We'll be honest. Take this with maybe a grain of salt,
That's
but
how anybody can get in.
at this point in the project, I understand cost is always a concern, but you may not need to worry about change orders just at this point because we're only working with a concept design. Once we get to like a construction manager and that point, then obviously the change order number is important to look at and determine, you know, okay, they had a lot of change orders on these projects versus this other company. This may, but not to say that like the concept design may or may not cost change orders down the road. But I wouldn't use those numbers as like the end all be all of like, oh my God, they're gonna drill us with millions of dollars of change orders.
So I guess then my question would be with stuff that we've been dealing with right now. From my opinion, and reading some of the stuff that we've seen with like Abbey Road, there was a ton of stuff missing. And also we have a ton of change orders. So I guess my concern would be the reliability of the person or the company that we're choosing here. If they were missing stuff and all of a sudden that's why they're changed orders. I think that's why we're kind of.
Yeah, so let
They're
me-
just doing conceptual plans.
That's true.
They're not doing construction documents. They're not doing.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
At some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking, once we figure,
Yeah,
once it's decided what we're gonna do, I'm thinking another RFE
For
or
architects.
architecture, yeah.
For the actual.
And then
Yeah.
once that happens.
It may be these people, it may not, whoever you.
Yeah.
pick.
I mean, these conceptual would probably be what, like 20% drawings, right? They're not, if you.
Yeah, so
But
once,
more like a 10%.
yeah, so once we get past the conceptuals is just to really help us determine specifically, I would say for the middle school and high school, are we gonna do renovate to new versus new construction? Because once you have, it's really hard right now to get a cost estimate to kind of compare which one is the better option. So once you have a conceptual design, even though they may be like a 15 to 20% design, it gives you a little bit of a more concrete number to make a decision.
Mhm.
Once we get past that point, we get through the grant applications, we go potentially to a referendum if needed. And we get to the point where, okay, we're gonna have an architect on board. They're gonna do their own level of schematic design development drawings, construction documents, and then a final bid set. So you're gonna go through almost 4 or 5 iterations of drawings
Right.
before you even get to construction. So in terms of liability, yes, would they potentially be liable for certain things? Sure, but you're gonna go through so many iterations after that it's not, I don't wanna say it's not a concern, but it's not as high of a risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, because these are just conceptual, so it's kind of a low level. It's really, once we put it out to bid for contracting, it's really where we're gonna have to start writing everyone, and making sure they're.
Yeah.
The concern though,
You don't
that
want-
I would imagine that they're thinking about is the fact that they're coming together for the budget, and that budget is the number that we're presenting to people. And that's the number we're not gonna be able to go over. So, I mean, you wanna make sure that that's, you know.
You don't want an off-the-wall construction plan with all kinds of
No.
Crystal Palace ideas and that.
I don't think we're gonna do that either.
You go to bid with something like that, you're gonna be out of the ballpark before you start.
This is like starting point one, as
Farm town.
far as I see. You still need a,
This is
Conceptual
really to
drawing.
try and get some guidance as to how it's gonna
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, because I don't know if anyone, you probably saw it, but we did a presentation at the beginning of last year.
was that at one of the schools over here?
Yes, and it had a lot of cost estimates and variations, and those were all based on like square foot numbers. And everyone's asking me, well, is this what it's gonna cost? And it's like, I can't,
Yeah.
I'm not an estimator and I don't have concrete quantities to go off of. So it could be more, it could be less. I don't know. It's really hard to base decisions off just square foot numbers. So this concept design, I think, will really help everyone kind of make decisions.
It's almost like a ROM, like a ballpark number, really,
Mhm.
not really.
It's a shot in the dark, honestly.
Today it is.
Well, they're gonna go through the building a little bit, and they're not gonna go through probably to the extent the person that's gonna do the construction drawings. But they're gonna go through and get an idea as to what's what. And I would imagine that the next phase, if it's like you're gonna renovate something to new, whoever the architect is gonna have to get pretty deep into what the systems are, where everything is.
Is any of the exterior, is that involved as well?
Yes.
Ball fields,
They
stuff
will
like
look
that,
at-
parking,
We'll look at the,
Yep, so, if for the
we double the
middle,
parking now.
for the combined middle and high
Should-
school, for example, for the elementary school, they're gonna look at parking, they're gonna look at bus loops, they're gonna look at parent pickup and drop off. They're gonna look at, okay, ball fields, can we use the existing football fields? Do we need to replace it? Can
Okay.
we add a big, again, they're gonna look at all that stuff depending on what the need is and come up with a very preliminary plan.
and that's all driven by the ed specs that were done, right?
Yes, which we are currently working on. I actually have a draft that needs, the elementary school ed specs are being drafted right now.
Okay.
I just received comments for the middle high school ones, this morning, actually.
So, on our agenda is to discuss, which we've done, and to vote. Are you guys, you have a question?
So there's 7 choices here and we're looking at maybe choosing one of these 7 firms. Now, does this lock us into the whole design build? I mean, where does it go to?
This is only to get you to grant application.
Okay, that's,
What you need a conceptual.
that's what I thought, but I wanted to hear it.
Relatively safe.
This
Yeah.
It's for the grant, when you apply for a grant application with the state, you need to apply for a grant amount.
Right,
So in order to get that amount, you need a concept design because you need to do an estimate based on the concept.
right.
And that basically, that grant amount locks you in and it says, okay, just throwing out a number, let's say a school is gonna cost $50 million. You apply to the state saying a project is worth 50 million. And then we're gonna get reimbursed based on whatever your reimbursement percentage is. And then you're gonna be responsible for the remaining town share, the remaining
And
percentage.
after this, they're done.
Yes,
Yeah,
and then
that's
we have to
what I thought.
issue it. We thought, like I said before, we thought about kind of having a route to have them continue. It's just hard when you don't fully know what the project is gonna be yet.
Is there a timeline that they have to adhere to once we
So
award this?
wanted to submit grant applications by, they are due by June 30th every year for the state. So we basically have to get a concept design going in order to meet that June 30th deadline.
And this also will run into the helping out with the referendum, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And all of like the referendum dates, that's all still, I think, being worked out.
Mhm.
And we're working on all that stuff in the background,
Yep.
but the goal, if everyone is serious about doing this, is to get to the June 30th grant application date. I would like to get them in before June 30th, because I've done the down to the wire.
Is GWWO, you said they didn't do much work in this area before in Connecticut?
So
Kind of
they're-
new to that?
They're newer to the area. They've done a lot of schools in Baltimore, or I'm sorry, in the Maryland area.
Yeah.
They are out of West Hartford. I think that's why they partnered with Northeast, because Northeast Collaborative has that Connecticut school construction experience.
Yeah, here's.
So I think they're trying to kind of break
Okay,
into the
sorry.
Connecticut school construction market.
I was thinking that's why their price is maybe a little lower too, just
Yeah. I'm not sure what rationale, like, I don't see whatever they submit. I don't see their rationale behind their price.
Yeah.
See, what do I? Should tell you.
I haven't heard of that before. I've worked with Teflon and Slam and KBA in previous lives.
I believe they've all been around for a while.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I mean, it's really just a conceptual design we're after so that we can apply for the grant. I mean, I'd like to get a conceptual design that works for everybody, certainly, Board of Ed and the school system. But I mean, if we're just going after that, it's kind of an easy, I mean, there shouldn't be a lot of change orders here at all.
You wouldn't
I would
think.
think none, really.
The only change orders you're gonna see is if there's something that comes up that they need a potential additional service for.
Yeah,
That's what I would maybe consider a change order, but
There's no way this
you're
can,
not gonna be worried about construction change order.
no, I mean, they're just gonna do basic mechanical design. They're not really gonna analyze everything. I mean, they'll have a good idea, I would think, what's going
Yeah.
on, but.
I think based on the score and overall information.
Which WWL,
Yeah, I've been with you. I
what he talked
don't
about.
know how everyone else feels yet. But we should hold it like a vote or.
And then
Yeah.
we vote, this gets up to the board of selectmen.
Mhm.
So they actually make the final decision.
Right,
Well,
correct.
yeah.
Based on our
Based
recommendation.
on our recommendation, yeah.
can GW,
They did a big one of it.
they get the best. It's good. Give it.
Yeah.
We need a motion?
We haven't
Maybe.
got to that yet.
Yeah, it's way down here.
Only drawing pictures now, right?
Basic,
You can do this, you do that, and with the building, or the, put a land,
yeah.
but I don't know. It's hard to pick them,
Anybody want to make a motion?
You don't have to, at this stage, I don't, think a lot of money to get something like this done.
No, it seems like GWWL,
Make a motion to
they got right.
award this to GWWL.
Yes, think you should recommend it to the board of selectmen.
Dave,
Anybody else?
Anybody have an additional comment?
We recommend it to the board of selectmen. We can't award it.
No,
That's what I mean.
we recommend it, yep. So we've got a motion and a second. All
Second,
all in favor?
The clarification.
All in favor? Yes, we made a clarification.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's just conceptual.
All in favor?
I,
better do.
Jim's still sick?
no, mine.
All right,
Huh?
um,
She the last,
Jim's not here, so we're not gonna talk about school, town. Well, we talked about school, town. At some point, can we get the, December bill for, because I don't think we've seen the December requisition,
I think we just got,
December one? Okay,
I think I just approved. I think it was December.
okay,
There was a lot of questions with Shane. There was something funky.
okay,
So we finally got it straightened out. I believe I think I signed it like maybe Thursday.
okay, all right. We've got another meeting at the end of the month, so we can touch base on that then. There's no financial, topics from the floor? Anybody have topic they want to talk about? Public participation?
I have a question, and I know that's kind of odd during public, so if you can't answer it now, that's fine, you can just. But I was just wondering where you talked about, like, this is just through conceptual timing. And it might be odd if then we hire a different architect for the actual project, but because we're still using like CSG, would you guys have like, I don't know if rights is the right word, but like rights to the architectural concepts that this first company does? So if we did hire a different company, they could still use, what we got through this process that got us the grants.
I wouldn't say that we would have rights, but we would have to. Let me get back to you on that.
All right, I was just curious, like.
It's a good question, and I don't want to give you the
If
wrong
we ended
answer.
up hiring a different architect for the second part of it, we didn't go through with this, I mean, if we go through with the same.
Usually,
people,
you
But
do.
you're
then it
paying.
makes
you
sense.
pay for it, should be yours.
Paying for it, it should be yours.
Sorry, you're right.
Yeah, if we
It's not yours. I think we ought to revote.
trust them and we have them,
And
can this, if we went with a different architect for the actual project, can they use?
To ask,
That's really a good question. I don't
You
know
should.
the answer off the top of my head, so let me do some.
Pay
research.
for you own it.
I will get back.
Like, maybe they're just conceptual enough, like Dave said, that you don't have to, they can just look at it and say, well, this was just the 10% conceptual, we can say the same, start from there. But like, if we're getting this as approved, we have this, like, you know what I'm saying?
I think,
Yeah,
so it's a great question, but they're probably whoever we're hiring next, or whatever, is doing a redesign. So it's the
Yeah.
concept. So I'm gonna build this Ford Mustang. I got
Mhm.
the concept, but this person's gonna build it differently.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of getting the concept. But
Well,
great question.
But if we get it approved at referendum, it has to be a certain.
It's a concept.
yeah, it's for like a percentage. It's like 10% of the 100% of the job.
Yeah,
So once they're done and we get to the point where we start to bid it out, they would actually be, I would certainly, I mean, in my world, a lot of times, whoever does the conceptual ends up doing the rest of it. But it doesn't always mean that that'll be that way.
Yeah.
So the referendum, and I'm not super familiar with your referendum laws in town, so don't quote me on this, but your referendum typically only authorizes the dollar amount. It
Mhm.
doesn't say that you have to design a school that looks
Exactly like that.
it is
specific.
It just says, okay, we're authorizing a school project for X amount of money.
Okay, no, that makes sense. All right, I was just curious. in terms of that
Eventually-
Discussion. that-
Yeah, eventually, once we get down to like, and there is some pieces of the grant application where like the Board of Ed has to approve like the ed specs, for example.
Mhm.
But then once we get down to, like if we get really far in the process and we have to meet with the state prior to going out to bid, there is some approvals that like the building official has to sign off on the design, the Board of Ed has to sign up, like there is those types of approvals, but the referendum is more so like just the dollar cost of the project.
And I'm sorry, I didn't say who I was, but do you need my address or anything?
You can give me your address.
Okay, so it's Kate Carey Trell and my address is 28A Folkestone Road.
Thank you. Okay,
It should be something, she brought up a good point, but we can't go to referendum with one kind of school and then build something else.
Totally
I
different.
mean,
Yeah.
taxpayers in
No,
this
that-
would have us all.
I would imagine the referendum.
That's gonna be,
A certain way.
That's what the
we're going to
conceptual.
hire, town's gonna hire someone to come up with a conceptual design. And we're gonna have a dollar amount based upon that conceptual design. First off, I don't think we're gonna hire somebody and say, we don't like that, let's do something different, because you're not gonna have any idea where you are dollar wise, because you've just went through and spent $100,000 roughly to come up to where you are. Number two, the company that's doing the conceptual is gonna have a lot more intimate knowledge of the project than anybody else coming in. So there should be a very good chance that they're likely gonna be the low bidder when it comes to the actual construction.
And it may be the best bid for us because they may be more aware of what our requirements are. So we could kind of,
What's the info they're getting?
They'll know us and we'll know them.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Oh, sorry.
No, I know we have a ton of questions, but we have to kind of stick to the agenda and we're gonna keep going off.
Bonding
So-
capacity.
And I know there's a lot for us to talk about this, but, we're at the end.
With it,
Does
right?
anybody have an adjournment?
We're pretty tight, right?
The motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. You guys can talk about whatever you want. Okay. Thank you very much.